Okay. I could not wait to get Merrill. Before I bring Merrill Reese on, I couldn't wait because I wanted him to hear this. I've heard a lot of retirement speeches in my life, and sometimes they're just that. Very rarely do you get a genuine one and a guy who has love for everything and the city he played in, his teammates, the people that covered him, especially the city of Philadelphia, and a man that's seen thousands of great players, all the attitudes, all the personalities that have been in Philadelphia. The legendary Merrill Reese joins us now, and I'd love to bring him in here and get his quick takeaway from that press conference today. Merrill, Merrill, just so you know, I'm watching it, and I cried because I sat there and I said this. I go, this isn't tears of sadness. This is tears of gratefulness and all the things that he had in his life. And that was my quick takeaway. How did you take away from that great interview today or that great press conference?
Well, you're right. I wouldn't have expected anything else with Jason Kelce because Jason Kelce has such a big heart and such a high regard for the fans of this city. I am tired of hearing athletes say, oh, they boo us. We don't get the support we deserve. They're fair weather fans. Jason Kelce, these are passionate fans. He gets it. These are fans who drive you to excellence, who had a very big part in me reaching the pinnacle of my career the way I did. He said they care. They're the fans in football. He was just great. And yeah, he was emotional. There's no doubt about it. At times he was funny, but he was emotional. And I thought it was the best retirement announcement I ever heard.
For you, Merrill, and you know what? I'm not going to put you on the spot because I don't think it's a fair comment. But what I'll ask you is, has he been one of the most embraced athletes that you have covered since you've been the broadcaster of the Eagles in Philadelphia?
Without any question. Absolutely, yes. He is right there with the most embraced athletes. We get closer to our athletes than we did when I first started with my first play-by-play game in 1977. Now, I'm not talking about me personally because I've always been close to a lot of the members of the team by being in the locker room every day and at practice. But I'm saying that as fans, we are so much more up close and personal, and we all feel like we get to know these guys. And I would say absolutely, Jason Kelce has had such great exposure and has connected so well with the fans. The only one recently who I think had that same kind of connection, perhaps, was Brian Dawkins. People loved Doc. They loved the way he ran out on the field like Mr. the Wolverine Man. And they loved his passion when he spoke with them. And Kelce is that way too, to an nth degree.
How about this too, Merrill? You've seen so many journeys of players go from point A to point B. And, I tell people, just for me, having had a small time in that league, just to make it to that league, it's emotional to leave that league. To see a guy that's that accomplished, to say, and you know how many times we don't get a chance to do this, Merrill? I have to go. We're usually told when to go. He was, I have to go. As a health thing for you, were you glad it was now and it was time now for him so that he could leave a productive life? And did you want him to step away from the game?
I consider myself a friend of Jason Kelce, off the field and on the field. There are times we'll go into the cafeteria during the week when they're on a break, and we'll just sit and chat for 25 minutes, and we've played golf together. He's been my guest at my golf course, and we've had a lot of fun together. I consider him a friend. And yes, Jason Kelce could come back next year and still be one of the best centers in the National Football League. His physical skills have not left him. but he's taken a pounding for 13 years, and enough is enough. Every year after this that he takes a pounding would really hurt him more in the future. He is smart. He's leaving as one of the best players, and he's able to walk away, not limp away.
Is there going to be a leadership void without having him in that building and not having him, especially in that huddle? Because I look at Jalen, and I look at him this way. He's such a young player still. You're learning and you're still growing as a man, as a leader, as a quarterback, as a face of a team. So there's still a process there that he's going through.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the leadership in that locker room will look, especially if Fletcher Cox also next week, we say, because we're hearing that. I'm going to ask you about him in a second. What if he decides to call it? Then you got Brandon Graham as the last real, along with Lane, leader in that building from the leadership council. How do you see the leadership this time going into 24?
I'm glad you threw in that little along with Lane, because Lane Johnson is a pretty respected guy. And Lane Johnson is not afraid to step forward and say what has to be said. He's a go-to guy. So you have Lane Johnson in there. You do still have BG in there, we think. But in all probability, BG is, oh my goodness, BG is a ray of sunshine for everybody around him. He's that kind of guy. So there are people who step forward. You don't know what their method is going to be exactly. There are guys who step forward by example. There are other guys who are not afraid to yell at a teammate. There are other guys. The lineman used to say, the defensive lineman, that Fletcher Cox is our guiding light. He's the guy who keeps us doing and preparing the way we have to prepare. But Fletcher's been terrific. But as I said, you never know. I mean, in his goodbye, Jason talked about the feeling on that game in Los Angeles in 2017, where probably at that point the MVP of the league was Carson Wentz, and he went down with the knee injury, and he said, we in the locker room after that game, stepping up was Malcolm Jenkins, and he used a phrase that is on the Eagles. It's sketched on the Eagles championship ring, and he said, "We need. What was it? We all we need. We all we are," or something like that. But it was 5 words that became one of the battle cries of that team. So he said, he was the one who stepped forward with a lot of confidence. So you never know. I mean, there are young players on this team who have yet to really be heard. I mean, who knows what Jordan Davis is going to be like once he is in a more senior position. There are a lot of bright guys on this team. Reed Blankenship is a bright guy. Another guy who barely touched the surface last year, but I still think he's going to be a great player one day, and that's the young safety that they got got in the draft from the University of Illinois.
Sidney Brown.
Yep, he's going to be something. There's no doubt about that. He is going to be something.
Merrill, when you look back and you look at all the guys that you've covered, I mean, when you back in the day of Bergie and back in the day when you're talking Reggie and you're looking Dawkins, as you said, I mean, Kelce, is it like that? You put him in that conversation with some of the most revered people that have played in that green and how people look at them. I mean, because a lot of people loved all those players too. And it's just a love affair that city has with those football teams like that. The moment Kelce brought up too, I got to tell you, Merrill, my favorite, with all your greatness that you've covered, when Kelce brought up today, when he talked about going over to Doug, and it's in the Super Bowl, and he says, Philly, Philly. And Doug's got all these papers, like I've told you this before, and he's got all these papers, and he goes, "You want to run it?" And you're sitting there watching that. I don't know about you, Merrill, but that's the greatest moment in Super Bowl history for a coach and a player just to go, let's do it.
That was Nick. That was Nick Foles, who went over there and said, Philly, Philly. And Doug said, Philly, Philly. And
Yep.
I said,
What'd you say? What'd you say when you saw that?
I'll tell you exactly what I said. And I'm going to be honest with you. They're down at the 1 yard line, and they have a couple of seconds at the half. And don't forget, I remember a game when they were playing against the Green Bay Packers at the Link in a playoff game. And I believe the Eagles, the Packers lined up on 4th and goal with seconds to go and went for it. And the Eagles stacked them up. And you could feel that momentum change right there. The Eagles roared off the field, and the Packers disappointingly slinked back to their locker room. And I remember that like it was yesterday. And so here they are, and they're going to kick off to the Packers. They're going to kick off to the Patriots to begin the second half. They're going to kick off to the Pats. And I said on the air, they've got to take the 3 points. You've got to take the 3 points right here. And of course, they do everything they have to do. And, it all works out with the pass to Nick Foles. And what happens? Mike Quick says to me, that's why you're up here and Doug's down there. And you know what? I'll tell you, Dan, the following week, I said to Doug, Doug, that is the worst play. That is the worst call and the best result I have ever seen. And he laughed, of course. But you know what? If I saw that play 3 or 4 more times in the same situation, I still believe they should have gone for the 3 points. Wouldn't you go for 3 points?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. And you know what happened to begin the second half? The Patriots took the opening kickoff and went bing, bang, boom, bong, bing, bong, touchdown Gronkowski. Right? They came right back, just like that. And suddenly you're looking from behind. But at that moment, it all worked, and that's all that counts.
I have to ask you this last one. It's on Fletcher Cox. And I've said this before to people about Fletcher. You drafted him 13th at a Mississippi State, at Ole Miss. And
Yazoo City, Mississippi.
I got to tell you, I've said this when I first came on the air in Philly here, that in my opinion, he's been a more complete defensive tackle than Aaron Donald because he's played both. He can play the run and he can play the pass. Donald's not really a run-stopping tackle. He's the best pass-rushing 3 technique in NFL history. But all the things you wanted, would you not rate him as one of your greatest defensive tackles like Reggie? Maybe Fletcher?
Well, Reggie was more of a DE.
He was. And so you're right. You'd have to go more interior. So you'd probably sit there with Jerome. You'd probably go in there with Hollis, maybe Corey Simon.
Hollis was good.
He was. I think, for a guy who was undrafted, that guy played some. He was a tough ball player. I thought Corey Simon was a really good interior defensive tackle.
For too short a time.
Yeah, too short a time. And same with a little bit with Jerome, but Jerome still had 3 Pro Bowls. But I would put Fletcher in the conversation as your best interior. I mean, I love so many of your players that you had inside there. And like you said, I mean, there's so many great ones there. But where do you look at Fletcher Cox's career as an Eagle?
I put him in there. I put him in there with the very best.
He's better than Pitts.
Oh, yeah. 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 Pitts alternated, with Golick.
Yeah.
With Mike Golick and Mike Pitts. They alternated with that great defense. But still, we think of that defense without Jerome Brown and realize that they had the greatest defensive coordinator maybe of all time, and that was Bud Carson. And that was number 1 against the run, number 1 against the pass, and number 1 overall. So that's pretty good.
Merrill, I'll tell you a real quick story. So he used to come down, and I told everyone the story. This is when Jimmy and him were friends, believe it or not, because he come down to Miami, and this is where I guess these guys met, because his first year with the Eagles, I think, was '86, and we were at Miami, and he came down to talk to me, Jerome, a guy by the name of Danny Stubbs, who I think played with the Eagles too a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, he played with the Eagles a little bit, and
He was from
he
this
would come
area.
down, and we'd sit in the room with him. There'd be Jimmy and Butch Davis and Dave Wannstedt, and they're talking about the 46. And here's Buddy. Hey, Sileo, get your head off your ass. You see that right there, Ken? You could tilt that up a little bit here and go here. What are you trying to do? Be a hero? You got guys behind you over here. And I'm going like, who is this guy? And Jerome's looking over at me, and he goes, hey, you, don't be a fat body. Get your ass in there. Hustle. Okay? And he's the brand new head coach, and he had just won a Super Bowl, and he did that for 3 years. So, Merrill, fast forward. You guys get beat on a Monday night, I think it was, against the Giants. Jerome has a horrible game. I had just been released by the Buccaneers. Eagles fly me up. I got a 3-year contract. I think Jeff Fisher was the D-line coach in '86.
No, he was just. This was before. For a while, at the end of Buddy, he went from secondary coach to defensive coordinator at the end. Wade Phillips was the defensive coordinator in title, because we knew Buddy was calling that.
So check this out, Merrill.
Secondary coach.
So check this out. Here's what he said. He comes walking up. Jerome goes like, I have all the executives from the Eagles. I have a 2-year with an extension contract in my hand. And I walk up. Buddy looks over at me. He goes, hey, what do you think I want? Another one of his around here? I know who you are, Sileo. You're one of that guy. You see that fat ass right there? That guy needs to get his ass out of his ass. You know what? I don't need another one of him around here. All the Eagle guys were going like this, and I said, I looked at Jerome and I go like this. You son of a dude. He was not shy. He was not shy, Buddy Ryan.
I love Buddy. I got to know Buddy very, very well. And if you were on his side, he was the best. If you weren't, forget it.
Absolutely. Merrill, thank you for spending some time with us and talking about Jason. It's going to be a very interesting free agency time, and also in the draft too. We'll hope to catch up with you again. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure, Dan. Always good to be with you.
Thank you very much. The legendary Merrill Reese. Guys, please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.